How's it going, folks? Stu here. Same t-shirt as the last video. Please don't hurt me. I do change clothes. I'm not a smelly person. I'm filming these back to back to save time, alright? I don't know what else to say. Netflix have been a little bit busy lately, haven't they? This week we got another hotly anticipated film over on Netflix in the form of The Devil All the Time. And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure why I was excited for this one, outside of the fact that it was just, pretty cast. Maybe that's enough, I don't know. But this one is an adaptation of a novel of the same name by Donald Ray Pollock, who, fun fact, also narrates the film. So do with that what you want. And it's essentially a sprawling kind of generational epic. It's kind of hard to summarize. What is it with Netflix putting out films at the moment which make me squirm when I have to explain them? Can someone just make a straightforward film about a boy walking down the road? Is it that hard, Netflix? So we'll turn to IMDb, because when has IMDb ever let us down before? And IMDb describes it as sinister characters converging around a young man devoted to protecting those he loves in a post-war backwards town, teeming with corruption and brutality. I'll be completely honest, I don't think that really explains a lot either. We'll move on. It's about people doing shit. All you need to know. It's a very dark, moody film. As I said, it's got a cracking cast. It was pretty good. I enjoyed this one. Tom Holland is our, lead here, and he's great. He's probably the best I've ever seen him, to be honest. And it's a very, very different role for Tom Holland. I mean, for one, he has the accent of someone that's been drinking and smoking for the past 40 years, and he's not even 25 in real life. But you do genuinely really feel the weight of this character's baggage, which is something that I'm not entirely sure how to pinpoint. I just know that I like that and I can see it there. But we also have Bill Skarsgard in the film, who I've been a really big fan of ever since Castle Rock. Side note, if you haven't watched that show, check it the fuck out. Again, he's sporting a very different accent, which is beginning to feel like I could just copy and paste that for every character description here. It's a film with accents. We might as well leave it at that. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is I love about Bill Skarsgard, but I do. When he pops up in a film, it makes me feel warm. Is that love? It might be. But there's also Robert Pattinson in the film, who has a different accent. He's got an accent as well. I love Robert Pattinson, and honestly at this point in his career, it does just feel a little bit like he's making it his mission to just turn up in films and have the best fucking time ever. Remember when he turned up in The King and was just like, I'm gonna do this French accent and there's nothing you can do to stop me? This is kind of like that. A part of me feels like his accent seems to just get thicker as the film goes on. I don't think I'm complaining though. Apparently he refused to have a vocal coach in the film and was just like, no, I'm doing this and you're gonna have to just let me do it. Which is the sort of thing which, if I had heard about an actor I don't like doing that, I'd be like, oh, you're awful. Get a vocal coach. Learn how to do a good accent. You're ruining the film. But because it's Robert Pattinson, I wholeheartedly love it. But also in the film, we've got Riley Keough, Haley Bennett, we've got Dudley from Harry Potter, we've got Sebastian Stan, Mia Wasikowska. I mean, it's a great cast. It is stacked. And there aren't really any weak links. I think everyone's doing a great job. It's probably my favorite thing about the film. I enjoyed watching everyone give pretty solid performances. And I think that kind of adds to the fact that all the characters in this film, they feel a lot like they all have their different fleshed out, fully realized story arcs, even if we're not seeing them. Like, it does feel a lot like we're just poking our head in and out of different character storylines, which I think I quite like overall. I always find that there's something really satisfying about sort of interweaving character storylines like that. I don't think it's been done perfectly here, and I think it's been done by better directors before, but I do think that Antonio Campos does a good job with that sort of thing. His direction's pretty solid. I think he's got a really strong grasp on kind of tone and atmosphere primarily. This is a film which is very consistent in its tone. I don't think it ever really does anything particularly crazy and brilliant and amazing with that. It can feel kind of safe and I guess cliche in certain choices throughout the film, but at least the consistency in the tone and the atmosphere does a good job in creating an effective and engrossing sort of world around the characters that we're watching. And that world is, on the whole, pretty hugely depressing. It's not a fun one, this one. But I think that kind of works on the whole. I didn't hate that. I mean, there are certain points where it can just feel almost predictably depressing and sinister. At a certain point, it's like, we get it. People are shit. Everyone's a dickhead. Can someone please, for the love of God, crack a joke? But I think on the whole, I enjoyed that kind of consistently moody atmosphere more than I found it frustrating. I mean, thank God it never stops and is just like, hey, this character, it just killed a baby and took a shit on an old woman, but he's feeling pretty sad at the moment. Don't know what film I'm imagining in my head. I hope no one ever makes it. But having said that, on the flip side of all of that, this is sort of where I start to get quite torn on this one. Because a film like that does run the potential of starting to feel quite samey in places. And it definitely happens in The Devil All the Time. Especially with a story like this, which is so kind of, I guess, generational and sprawling. And it's a long story. You're constantly introduced to new characters and new moments. And when you know that everyone's a dickhead, and you know it's a very cynical film, it can be a little bit underwhelming when characters, sure enough, turn out to be a dickhead. I'm not entirely sure what to take away from it. Is it just that people suck? Is that it? It kind of feels like it is to a certain extent. I mean, I think there is merit in seeing characters react to a world which is very unfair on them. I think that's an interesting device, and I don't hate spending time with characters in that world. I just wanted a little bit more from it, and it feels like it's almost there in so many scenes. I should be more emotionally connected to what's going on than I actually end up being. It throws big, heavy things at its characters, and it doesn't always feels like it knows exactly what to do with that. It's just like, cool, on to the next, we'll just keep going. And that can give it this kind of, I guess, messy feel, which I'm sort of in two minds about, because I don't think it necessarily falls flat overall. I find that sporadic sort of novelistic way of storytelling quite engaging, but I also do think it sort of lacks clarity in places. It can just sometimes feel a little bit random, especially when it will come back to things. So certain things in the moment don't seem to make as much sense as they do later in the film, and I don't think it does that quite effectively as I've seen other filmmakers do. For instance, one of the story arcs in this film is just, I guess, a serial killer, and they just serial kill. Towards the end of the film, it sort of clicks a bit more, but I never really got past that whole, like, cool, what are they doing here? How did that get into this film? But I think the story on the whole is interesting enough to make that work, or at least prevent that from completely derailing things. I think I'm kind of just a sucker for sort of long, generational story arcs through films. It really reminds me of something like Place Beyond the Pines in that sense. Really reminds me of it. Certain beats in this film are straight out of Place Beyond the Pines. I don't know if that's a coincidence or what. I just felt it. And I think ultimately that's probably the best way of summing up Devil All the Time for people, in my opinion. It's like Place Beyond the Pines, just not as good, and literally everyone is a terrible person. And I don't think that necessarily makes a terrible film. I would have absolutely liked more from it, but I didn't hate my time with The Devil All the Time. I've said time too many times. Oh God, stop it. But what about you guys? Have you seen The Devil All the Time? What did you think about it? I really feel like there's going to be a lot of differing opinions on that. Can't help but feel like some people are going to come at it like, ooh, Spider-Man and Sebastian Stan, Marvel team up. You might be surprised. Whatever you thought about it, let me know in the comments down below. We'll have a little chat. I'm going to go and watch all the happy videos I can possibly find to remind myself people can be nice. That nice people exist, everyone. This is your friendly reminder. Nice people exist. You just won't find them at government level. Am I right? That was a political joke to end this one on. We're all fucked.